Just 200 metres from Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, anti-abortion group 40 Days for Life have started their spring campaign. The Texas-based organisation will be holding prayer vigils near clinics that provide abortion services until the 13th of April at 10 different locations across the whole of the UK. In Glasgow, the road where protesters once stood is now occupied by parked cars and the colourful posters designed by counter-protesters removed. Since the introduction of safe access zones in September last year, campaigners are now required to stand at least 200 metres from sites providing abortion services in Scotland. But on the very outskirts of this buffer zone, anti-abortion protesters can be seen on Shield Hall Road, one of the main routes taken by patients accessing the maternity unit.
I'd like to ask if you think that this demonstration is acceptable, given that doctors, campaigners and people accessing abortion services find your mere presence uncomfortable and intimidating. And even if you're out with the 200 metre zone, I'd like to ask if you think it's acceptable.
For those living within the buffer zone, these protests can be seen from residents' homes.
Yes, it's the first thing that I seen when I opened my curtains this morning, and I found it extremely distressing. I thought once the buffer zone came into play that we wouldn't have this issue anymore, and as someone who's had to access those services in the past, I find it absolutely disgusting that these people are out there judging women, and they might seem, or they might say that they're trying to be peaceful, but they know exactly what they're doing. It's distressing, it's harassment, and it's victimising vulnerable people.
This is where, we hear ambulances all the time going up and down the street, so it is the main route to the hospital. It's undeniable. So the fact that they've picked to do it there is to be jarring.
It's a form of harassment really, and I feel really sorry for people that are maybe going through this and they get to see that. There's no purpose for it at all apart from to upset people, I think.
Gillian Mackay, the MSP responsible for the Safe Access Zones Act, has said that while she's glad to see a reduction in the number of protests across Scotland, there is scope for more work to be done.
For those who are living and overlooking these protests, I would encourage them to get in touch. Extension of the zone is something that the Act allows for, but we need that testimony from people to be able to prove the case for any extension that we would need to make. So I'd thoroughly encourage them to either get in touch with myself or the Scottish Government, and we'll take a look at what else it is we can do.
Just 2 weeks ago, a 74-year-old woman became the first person to be arrested and charged in connection with breach of the exclusion zone. Whether the Procurator Fiscal decides to impose a fine of up to £10,000 will set an obvious precedent for the rest of 40 Days for Life's campaign.